Today, Fanta is practically synonymous with youth and fun. You see it on supermarket shelves everywhere, sweet, bright, and seemingly harmless. But the origins of this drink trace back to a period of intense fear, severe rationing, and brutal conflict. The beverage actually exists out of pure necessity, invented after the Coca-Cola Company found itself trapped inside Nazi Germany during World War II. What we now treat as a cheerful, everyday staple is the direct result of a corporate survival strategy executed during one of the darkest eras in human history. During the 1930s, Coca-Cola's German division, led by a businessman named Max Keith, was wildly successful. The country was one of the company's largest international markets, with factories and advertisements deeply embedded in German society. Yet, despite having a massive local footprint, the entire operation relied on a single vital component, imported directly from America, the proprietary syrup concentrate. When the war broke out, international trade collapsed almost immediately. Transatlantic shipping routes were completely destroyed, severing all communication and supply lines between the United States and Germany. Max Keith was suddenly left with a massive workforce expecting salaries and active factories ready to produce, but absolutely none of the essential ingredient needed to actually make Coca-Cola. With the supply chain cut off, the German operation faced an immediate existential collapse. Most executives would have shuttered the factories, but Max Keith refused to let the subsidiary die. He ordered his team to engineer an entirely new, locally sourced beverage. This was an immense challenge because the wartime economy was suffering from extreme shortages. The German government heavily regulated nearly every resource. Because of strict state quotas, acquiring consumer goods like fresh fruit and refined sugar for a soft drink was out of the question. The researchers had to use whatever industrial leftovers they could scavenge. They threw together a mixture of apple fiber left over from cider presses and whey, the liquid byproduct of cheese production. For sweetness, they had to rely heavily on coarse, low-grade beet sugar. This Frankenstein-esque concoction was a product of geopolitical necessity, not a search for new flavors. With a drinkable prototype finally ready, Keith gathered his employees for a brainstorming session to name it, instructing them to use their imagination. In German, the word for imagination is Fantasie. Upon hearing this, one employee immediately shortened it and loudly shouted out the word Fanta. As the war dragged on, Fanta sales exploded. Because extreme scarcity made basic ingredients incredibly rare, German citizens actually began using the sweet drink as a utilitarian additive to flavor their soups and daily cooking. This cobbled-together substitute quickly became the vital commercial lifeline that kept Coca-Cola's German operation solvent throughout the war. When the war finally ended, the lines of communication between the American Coca-Cola headquarters and its isolated German branch were restored. The parent company looked at the books and realized that this makeshift wartime substitute was incredibly profitable and had built massive brand loyalty. Coca-Cola decided to keep the Fanta name. They completely discarded the grim whey and apple scrap recipe, eventually overhauling it into the bright orange-flavored beverage known today. The wartime survival tactic proved far too lucrative to bury. The history was sanitized and the brand was scaled for the global market. This story leaves behind an uncomfortable ethical dilemma regarding Coca-Cola Germany's decision to maintain active operations while existing under the control of an actively hostile fascist regime. This chart compares Fanta's wartime sales trajectory directly against the Nazi regime's expanding military control. By choosing to adapt its entire supply chain to function within the regime's constraints, the company didn't just survive, it became a functional part of the wartime economy. This raises a difficult question. At what point does corporate adaptability cross the line into moral complicity with a dangerous government? Yet this entire history is neatly obscured by the cheerful, vibrant branding currently sitting in refrigerators across 180 countries. The everyday commodities we casually consume often carry the heavy shadows of world history. Once you see the desperate wartime survival strategy hidden inside a simple orange soda, it changes how you look at items on a supermarket shelf.